Good morning to all of you. So the topic today that I will talk about is the convolutional codes. This is very important topic as far as the design of an efficient digital communication system is concerned. In the previous lectures, we have covered linear block codes. Linear block codes are codes without memory. Convolutional codes are channel codes which are with memory. Right, so that's the basic difference between the linear block codes and convolutional codes. So let us see what these codes are. If you remember in one of the labs I performed the experiment also for linear block codes. A linear block code is represented by n comma small k. Only two factors are there, where n is the number of bits in the code word and k corresponds to the number of message bits. But there is a third parameter in convolutional codes, which is capital K. So a convolutional code is specified by three parameters: n, small k, and capital K. Or it can also be represented by small k divided by n, which is actually called as the code rate, comma capital K. Now, where small k divided by n, this is known as code rate. That means number of message bits divided by the number of bits in the code word is known as a factor which we call as the code rate. Code rate is used to determine the number of data bits per coded bit. So because it's a reciprocal of the number of data bits divided by the code words, so basically it will represent the excuse me, it will represent the number of data bits per coded bit. All right. So in practice, usually in practice, I mean for the present syllabus, we will deal with convolutional codes where small k, I will take it to be 1. If I increase the value of small k, only the complexity level will increase, but the fundamentals remain the same. All right. So I usually will take small k as 1. That means I will take number of message bits at one time. I will take only 1, whether it is 0 or 1. So I will consider one message bit appearing at the input of the convolutional encoder. Capital K is known as the constraint length of the encoder. Now, an encoder in the convolutional codes will have memory elements. So if it has k minus 1, capital K minus 1 memory elements, then the constraint length will be given by capital K. That means k minus 1 memory elements, right? And k will be the constraint length. For example, if there is a shift register of 2 memory elements, right? What will be the constraint length of the code? 3. If 2 memory elements, constraint length will be 3. Right? If 3 memory elements, constraint length will be 4. In books, there is different definitions in literatures for constraint length, but we will stick to capital K as number of memory elements plus 1. I am following linear block codes and convolutional codes from the book authored by Bernard Sklar, Digital Communications, right? I will send you I have already sent the book. So all in all, a convolutional code is represented by small n, small k, and capital K, where small n is the number of bits in the code word, small k is the number of bits in the message vector or message word. Here I am taking small k equal to 1, and capital K is known as the constraint length. That means the number of memory elements plus 1. Then let us see this basic block diagram of a communication system. We have the information source. That means this small m, this is a message vector, m1, m2, mi. This is the input sequence. This will go to, I'm not including any blocks in between which are coming to information source and convolutional encoder. I'm concentrating on the convolutional encoder only. There will be a usual block that will come, which is the source encoder, but I'm omitting that block diagram because our job is at present to discuss the convolutional encoder. So the message vector, I will call this as the message vector. This is the input sequence. Will go to the convolutional encoder, right? And the rate of this encoder is k by n, where k I am taking it to be 1. G is the generating matrix, right? So this convolutional encoder will generate the code word. This is the message vector. This is the code word. Code word will consist of several code word sequence will be given by U1, U2, and U1 is UI. I will explain this with an example, because this is very important point to be understood. There will be branch words. Combining a few branch words will give you the code word. So UI, where I is an index, it can correspond to U1, U2, U3, and so on. So UI will be equal to UI1, UJI, and UNI. So what is UI, U11? This is the first branch word, second branch word, and third branch word. I will explain this with an example. So then it will be very clear to you. So after that, it is modulated and sent across the channel. At the receiver end, it is received here, demodulated, and this is the received sequence. This was the code word sequence that was transmitted. This is the received sequence. And we will pass it through a decoder, and we will try to extract the estimate of the message vector. So this is the general block diagram where the convolutional encoder and the convolutional decoder will be used. So let's take an example here, and then I will try, then the things will be very clear. So this is the structure of a convolutional encoder. Now this is, at the input is the input data bits, which is represented by small m. There are 3 memory elements. If you see, there are 3 memory elements, right? The first, normally you see in the book of Bernard-Sklar also, this first memory element is the input bit only. Actually, there are 2 memory elements. This is a shift register kind of block shown here. So this first square corresponds to the input bit that is coming. And these 2 blocks, the second and the third one, actually form a shift register, right? This is the input bit which is coming. This is the first memory element of the shift register. This is the second memory element of the shift register. So please do not confuse with, because if you, here I am taking the constraint length k equal to 3. So that means there are 2 memory elements, and 1 square is used to represent the input bit. So there is 1 input bit and 2 memory elements, hence the constraint length is 3, because there are 2 memory elements. All right. So it is a, now, so this is the one by one, the bit will transfer into the shift register, and we will get, this is the input, this XOR gate is actually, the input to this XOR gate is the input bit, the first bit in the shift register, and the second bit also in the shift register. All the 3 bits will be XORed, and then it will give a bit which is U1. All right. Look at the second XOR gate. This is the input to this XOR gate is the input bit, which will come from here, and the third bit of the shift register. And I can also explain this structure of the inputs going to the XOR gate as 1 1 1. If I write it like this, 1 1 1, for this structure, it will tell me that the input bit is connected to the XOR gate, the first bit of the shift register is connected to the XOR gate, and the second bit is also connected to the XOR gate. So it is 1 1 1 connection. Look at these connections. The connections for this will be 1 0 1. 0 in between tells us there is no connection between the first bit of the shift register. That means here in this structure, it is you can take it as second bit. There is no second bit going to the input of the second XOR gate. This is the input bit, and only the this bit which will go. So this is 1 0 1 structure. This is 1 1 1 structure. So when input bit will come, either 1 or 0, one will be placed in this block diagram, in this first square. The second square and third square will contain the previous bits because it's a shift register. The 3 bits will be XORed to give U1. 2 bits will be XORed to give U2. So that means when one input bit is transferred into the shift register, which is small k, so that means small k is 1. How many output bits you are getting? 2, U1 and U2. So this convolutional encoder, what is the code? This is the here the value of n is 2 and value of k is 1. So it is a 1/2 convolutional encoder. So that's why this rate is given. Rate of this encoder is 1/2 because 1 bit is coming at the input and 2 bits we are getting at the output. And this is also known as a branch word. This is the first coded bit, this is the second coded bit, and 2 coded bits placed together is known as a branch word. I hope the things are clear. If any doubt is there, then please ask. Any questions, please, till now? Okay, so this is the very basic convolutional encoder. I hope the meaning of rate is clear. The meaning of constraint length is clear. Constraint length is 3 because there are 2 memory elements in the shift register. This first element, though I am showing it like a shift register memory element, but it is not the memory element. The first square is actually containing the input bit, and the 2 second square and third square are containing the previous bits. So these are memory elements. That's why the constraint length is 3. So let's look at the convolutional encoder in detail in the next slide also. Sorry. Okay. So let us say, please look at this diagram carefully, and then you will be, I hope you will be getting the things very easily, because if you will try, let me make one thing very clear. If you will try to understand these things from the book of your own, it will take a lot of time of yours to understand these things. These things are not difficult. Only thing is that whatever I am trying to say, please catch my words and try to solve the things yourself. I think the things will be clear to you. Now, this is the same structure of the encoder I'm using, but what I'm doing is that now I am sending a message sequence 101. What is the meaning of 101? First one will enter, then this one will go at the second position in the shift register, and next 0 will enter. So let's look at the first entry. This is 101. So 1 will enter into the input bit. Let us assume that the shift register contains 00 initially. So do the XORing here for U1. What is 100 XOR? It is 1. So you will get U1 as 1. What is the XOR of 1 and this 0? It will be again 1. So the first branch word is 11, right? What is the second branch word? This is at time t1. At time t2, what happens? This 0 comes, this 1 moves forward, this 1 comes here. Again, the XORing will be done. So this is 010 will give you XORing of 010 will give you 1 for U1, and XORing for this second XOR will be 00, so it will give you an output of 0. So now the branch word is 10, correct? Let's look at time t3. Now again the next one will come, next one stays here. This 0 which was here at the input will go inside the shift register or memory element, and this one will move further. So this one will come to 101. Now do the XORing. 101 XORed will give you 0. 11 XORed will give you 0. So this is the branch word for the third time interval. What you are supposed to do here is that you have to continue producing the code word, because the message vector given is 101, but you have to flush out this 101 from the shift register till the time the shift register contains 000. That means you have to basically pad in zeros also. Now you at time t4 enter 0, because you are padding 0 here. At the end you must get all 3 zeros here. And look at the branch word. The branch word is 10 now. Look at again input one more 0. So do the XORing, because now at present also the 3 elements are not, the input bit and the 2 memory elements are not zeros. So find out the branch word. The branch word is 11. Again input one more 0. So now the input bit is also 0. The first memory element is also 0. Second memory element is also 0. What is the branch word? 0, 0. So for a message vector of 101, what is the what are the branch words this encoder has produced? Look at the branch words: 11, 10, 00, 10, 11. So this is again 00, right? So you get these branch words: 1, 2, 3, 4. How many branch words you will consider? Up till here you will consider the branch words. This is 11, 10, 00, 10, and 11. 5 branch words are there, corresponding to a message vector of 3 bits, 101. If you look at the effective code rate now, the code I started with a code with saying that the code rate is 1/2. But what is the effective code rate coming? If you supply 3 bits into the encoder, how many bits you get? 10. So it is a 3/10 effective code rate. All right. Now I will come to this part maybe a little later, because this is not that important. This is effective code rate. I will come to this part a little later. Now, as I said, this is my block. This is my encoder structure. I can represent this encoder structure in the vector representation also. How can I represent this as a vector representation? We define n binary vector with k elements. So the ith element in each vector is 1. If this what actually it means to say is that if there is a connection of the input bit to the XOR gate, the first element to the XOR gate, the second element to the XOR gate, this will be treated as 1, this will be treated as 1. So this is known as generator polynomial. So this connection is represented as G1. The first XOR gate connection will be represented as G1, and I will say 1, 1, 1. If I do not give you this structure, I only give you G1 as 1, 1, 1. So you clearly know that the 3 elements will be connected to the XOR gate. And for the second XOR gate, G2 is equal to 1, 0, 1. This is 1, 0, and 1. This is known as the vector representation of the encoder. Correct? Now, the point is that why these codes are called convolutional codes. For a message vector of 101, these are the branch words, and this is the code word. U is actually the full code word, and these 11, 10, 00, 10, and 11, these are known as the branch words. So you must understand between a code word and branch words. All right, corresponding to a message vector of 101, 3 bits, a code word of 10 bits will result. Now, why this type of codes are called convolutional codes, right? The message bits are, I will explain the meaning of the convolutional code with the help of the same example when you give 101 as the input, right? So rather, let us look at, we can approach the encoder in terms of its impulse response. That is the response of the encoder to a single 1 bit that moves through it. Consider the contents of the register. Consider the contents of the register as 1, 0, 0. So if I consider the contents of this register as 1, 0, 0, what is the branch word? It is 1, 1. right? And then move this one to the next position. Consider the branch words for 0 1 0. The branch word will come out to be 1 0. When the contents of the register are 0 0 1, I'm shifting this one. I am shift from the shift register. In this shift register, I am shifting this one to here, then to here. This is not corresponding to, this is known as the impulse response of the encoder. That is what is said here. We can approach the encoder in terms of its impulse response. So what is the meaning of the impulse response of the encoder? The response of the encoder to a single 1 bit that moves through it. Consider the contents of the register in figure which was in the previous on the as if 1 moves through it. So 1 moves through it. These are the branch words. So corresponding to 1 0 0, this is the branch word. Now what we have so this is the branch word. When you move 1 0 0, this will be the branch word. That means when the input sequence is 1 0 0, right? So this is 1 1 1 0 and 1 1. When this 1 moves through the through all the 3 elements of the register, then these are the branch words. This is known as the impulse response of the encoder. The input vector that we considered in our example was 1 0 1. Corresponding to 1, what is the impulse response? Impulse response is 1 1 1 0 and 1 1. Corresponding to 0, what is the impulse response? 0 0 0. This impulse response corresponding to 1. This impulse response corresponding to 0 is just shifted by, it is time shifted. For 1, the impulse response is 1 1 1 0 and 1 1. For 0, after shifting, the impulse response is 0 0 0 0 0 0. Corresponding to 1, again shifted 1 1 1 0 and 1 1. You add these bits. This will be 1 1. This will be 1 0. This will be 0 0. Right? This will be 1 0, and this will be 1 1. That's what is written here. The output sequence for the input 1 is called the impulse response of the encoder. Then for the input sequence 1 0 1, the output may be found by superposition or the linear addition. This is the linear addition of the time shifted input impulses as follows. So because the output is the superposition or the linear addition of the time shifted input pulses, that's why these codes are known as the convolutional codes. This is the impulse response. This is just now I have explained. I can also represent this encoder using a polynomial representation. If you remember what was G1, G1 was 1 1 1. If I use capital X as a argument, so G1x, I can write this as polynomial also. This will be G1x, and what are the coordinates? 1 plus x square. This is the polynomial. 1 plus x square, right? So what does that mean? The coefficient of this one is 1. The coefficient of this x is 1. The coefficient of this x square is again 1. So this is 1 1 1, and that's what is said here. My G1 is 1 1 1. I can write this as 1 plus x square also. And I will take the coefficients. This is 1 1 1. For G2x, the value G2, it is 1 0 1. If I put it in the form of a polynomial expression, what it will be? 1 plus x square, because the coefficient of this x, the second term, is 0. So this will be 1 plus x square. This clearly tells me how the connections are to be made. The connections are to be made 1 1 1, and for this the connections are to be made 1 0 1. All right. So this is the same representation, and you can this is the message bit, and this is the generator polynomial G1x. What is the message vector I am using? 1 0 1. In the polynomial representation, how can I write 1 0 1? 1 plus x square. And what is my G1x? G1x is 1 plus x square. So if you multiply this, this will be your multiplication output. For second polynomial, you again multiply that, and then this will be 1 plus x plus 0. Take this polynomial, this first polynomial here, and this second polynomial here, and take the coefficients 1 1 1 0 0 0 1 0 here and 1 1 here. So you get the same code word as you obtained after doing the XORing here. So there are different ways of expressing the structure of the encoder, maybe in the polynomial representation, or maybe a representation like this, G1 111, G2 101, or it can be polynomial in the form of G1x. It will be 1 plus x square. G2 will be 1 plus x square. For the term x, the coefficient is 0. Right. So this is how the outputs can be obtained using the polynomial representation also, vector representation also, and from structurally also you can find out the output. I hope that what important thing you need to understand now is that the important thing is that it is the input bit, one input bit will go inside the shift register. It is a 2-element shift register. This first element only represents the input bit. That is why 3 boxes are there. The shift register contains 2 boxes as memory elements. First box is only the input bit. And then you have to do the XORing like this. This is the convolutional encoder. If you transmit 101 at the input of the convolutional encoder, this convolutional encoder, the output will be 11100010, which will go across the channel and reach at the receiver. Right. So these convolutional codes, you must ask me the question that I am having 3 information bits only, but I am sending 10 bits. Why I am wasting my bandwidth? See, the bandwidth is being wasted to tackle the effect of noise. If any error comes while traveling through the channel, now using these codes, I can correct the errors also. These channel codes are for error detection and error correction. We will see that at the later part of this presentation. All right. So the same encoder can be represented using a state diagram also. So let's see how the encoder can be represented using a state diagram. Let me come to the state diagram itself. So this is the representation of the same encoder structure. This encoder structure, same encoder structure, G1 as 111, G2 as 101 in the form of a state diagram. Let's see how this can be represented using a state diagram. The S0, S1, S2 and S3, these are the states of the shift register. What do you mean by that? What do you understand by the state of a shift register? State of a shift register is the second element and the third element of this structure. The second element and the third element is actually forming the shift register. As I am repeatedly saying, this first box is representing the input. These two are the flip-flops or the memory elements of a shift register. The contents of these 2 elements of the shift register is actually the state of the encoder. Right? This is the input bit. This is the input bit. What is the state of the encoder? The contents of these 2 elements. Now, how many combinations of elements these elements can be there? It can be 0 0, 0 1, 1 0 and 1 1. So how many states the shift register can be in? It can be in 4 states. 0 0, 0 1, 1 0 and 1 1. So that is why I am representing this encoder structure with 4 states, S0, S1, S2 and S3, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1. If input 0 comes, if input bit 0 comes in this encoder structure, if input bit 0, let me show you. If input bit, if the shift register is, let's say, in 0, 0 state, that means the second element contains 0, the third box also contains 0, and if 0 comes as the input, what is the output? 0, 0. So that's what is represented in this state diagram. If the state of the shift register is 0, 0, and if 0 input comes, what is the output? 0, 0. I hope you must have studied how to draw the state diagrams in your digital electronics course. The same concept is being used here. This is the state of the encoder. This 0 oblique 0, 0, numerator part is the input bit. The denominator part is actually the output of the encoder. But when the state of the encoder is 0, 0, that means the second element is 0, the third element is also 0, but input bit 1 comes. So what is the output? Output will be 1, 1. So that's what is shown here in this state diagram. If you see, when 0 input comes, the state is 0, 0, and the output will be 0, 0, and it remains in the same state. What is the meaning of this? Because in the next time interval, when this 0 will be transferred into the second position, so the encoder remains in 0, 0 state only. But when input bit 1 comes, and if the state of the encoder is 0, 0, what is the output? Output is 1, 1, right? At the next time interval, what is the state of the encoder? The encoder state will be this 0 will move forward, this second 0 will go out, and input bit, which is 1, will come at the first position of the shift register, and the second position will be 0. So what is the next state of the shift register? It is 1, 0. When input bit 1 comes, the next state is 1, 0, and the output is 1. In this way, if you will try, if you, this is the table, when the input is 0, 0, when the state is 0, 0, input bit 0 comes, next state is 0, 0, and the output is 0, 0, next state is S0. So this is a table formed for this encoder structure, right? So this encoder structure can be represented in the form of a state diagram also. So this is the state diagram in which the whole encoder structure, actually this is encoder structure only. If I give you the encoder structure or I give you the state diagram, meaning is same. All right. Now, there is one more way to represent the encoder structure, and this is known as the tree diagram. So let us look at what is the tree diagram. Why this tree diagram is needed? Let me tell you. The representation of the encoder using a state diagram does not have any timing information. Though it contains the movement of the states to states as the input is coming, and I also know the output. But what is happening at time t1, t2, t3, t4, t6, t100, t1000? So this state diagram does not contain the timing information. But timing information is sometimes important, that at what time the encoder was in which state. Suppose I am at t100 time, I want to know what was the encoder state at t3. So from this state diagram, I cannot find that. So to include the timing information into the representation of the encoder structure, the encoder structure can be represented using a tree diagram. So how to represent a tree diagram? This is, if you look at the tree diagram, this is look at this horizontal line first. And there are two arrows. One is in the upward direction, the other is in the downward direction. The upward direction represents 0. The downward direction represents 1. And let us say the encoder is in state A. Okay, so please try to understand this portion first, which says that the upward direction tells me it is 0, input as 0. The downward direction tells me the input is 1, and the encoder is in state A. Encoder is in state A when input 0 comes. Suppose the encoder is in state A and the input bit 0 comes, right? What will be the next state of the encoder? It will be A. So it goes, whenever the input bit 0 comes, you have to move upwards. Whenever input bit 1 comes, you have to move downwards. So when the input bit is 0, the state of the encoder remains A and the output will be 0, 0. Right, now the state of the encoder at time t1 is state is A and output is 0, 0. Again, if 0 comes, what will be the next state? Next state will be A only. What is the output? 0, 0. So going at every branch, when the input bit 0 comes, you go upwards. When the input bit 1 comes, you go downwards. Movement of the tree going above tells me the input bit is 0. There is no need to mention the input bit every time. What is the input bit? If I am going above, the input bit is 0. If I am going down, the input bit is 1. And let us look at if the state of the encoder is A, input bit 1 comes. The example is for the same encoder structure only, which was there in the previous pages. If the state of the encoder is A, input bit 1 comes. What is the next state? The next, let me just show you. Okay. This S0 is state A, right? S2 is state, I can represent S0 with or A, B, C, D, right? In this, I have taken this actually diagram from Burnett-Sklar only. In Burnett-Sklar, rather than representing the states as the S0, S1, S2, S3, the states are represented as A, B, C, D, right? Now, if the input bit 1 comes, what is the next state? Next state is B. What is the output? Output is 1, 1. Correct. As per our message vector, the message vector was 101. So when input bit 1 comes, it goes to state B. What is the output? 1, 1. Again, next it will be 0, right? So this is actually, you have to draw the complete structure, taking all the possible combination, right? Again, if 0 comes, you move upwards. You draw this tree structure mentioning all the possible combinations. Why this bold line is there, I will explain you in the later part, right? But you have to draw the complete general structure of tree diagram of the encoder, considering every option. If the next state is B, if in input bit 0 comes, the next state will be C, output will be 1, 0. If the input bit 1 comes and the state is B, the next state will be D and the output is 0, 1. So in this way, you have to go on drawing the tree structure. The advantage of the tree structure over the state diagram is that it has got timing information. All right. But the problem with tree diagram is that if you have reached to T5, T6, if you go to T100, let's say, this is a huge structure that it will be difficult to draw it on paper, and if it will be difficult to draw, it will be difficult to implement it through hardware, because you have to design the structure using huge amount of resources. Now, but if you look at the tree structure carefully, now if you look at the tree structure carefully, what happens? Look at this point, A, B, C, D. A, B, C, D. After 3 time intervals, this is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. Why I'm talking about 3 time intervals? Whatever is the constraint length of the encoder. Here in this example, the constraint length is 3. So after 3 intervals, what you find is that the trellis, this tree structure A, B, C, D repeats the above portion, the upper portion of the tree and the lower portion of the tree represents the same structure. If you look, this is the same A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D. Then the lower, this is the upper structure and this is the lower structure, A, B, C, D, right? So this upper structure and the lower structure represents the same. Actually, the upper structure is repeating, or I can also say the lower structure is repeating here. So rather than drawing the repeated structures at the upper portion and at the lower portion, but this is happening after how many time intervals? After 3 time intervals. Why 3 time intervals? Because the constraint length is 3. What I can do is that I can merge these states. This A, I can merge with this A. This B, I can merge with this B. So the upper portion of the tree structure can be merged with the lower portion of the tree structure. When you merge, this is important. When you merge the upper portion of the tree structure with the lower portion of the tree structure, then a new structure takes the shape. And that new structure is called the trellis diagram. So this is the trellis diagram. This is the trellis diagram, which after you merge the upper portion of the tree structure and the lower portion of this tree structure, what results is a trellis structure. All right. I think I will end my lecture here only, and I will try to explain the things in the coming lectures in more detail. You just go through this lecture, also this video lecture, and also the book. You will be able to understand. So in my today's lecture, what I have tried to explain you is the encoder, convolutional encoder, how to generate the code word from the message vector, what are branch words, how the branch words are combined to form a code word, what is the meaning of the impulse response of the convolutional encoder and why it is called a convolutional encoder, and how can you represent the connections of the XOR gate using vector representation and also the polynomial representation. And then I have also discussed about the how the encoder structure can be represented using a state diagram. The problem with the state diagram is that it does not contain any timing information. So the structure that can be used to represent the timing information is the tree structure. But there is a problem with the tree structure that it expands to a huge structure as we move along with the time. So what is the remedy? The remedy lies in the tree structure only. The upper portion of the tree structure is exactly the same as the lower portion of the tree structure after 3 time intervals or after the constraint length. So what we can do is that this tree structure, the upper portion can be merged with the lower portion and a new structure will take the shape. A new structure will emerge and that structure is called as the trellis diagram. So in the next lecture, I will talk about the trellis diagram and so on. So if any questions are there, please ask the question, right? Or I will end the lecture and I will continue with this lecture in the next, maybe tomorrow is a lecture, so I will discuss the rest of the portion in tomorrow's lecture. Thank you.